Hello and welcome to today's web conference. This is the Dynamics 365 Fast Track Tech Talk. Today's topic is field service, and our presenter today is a Senior Fast Track Program Manager from Microsoft, Dean Hardy. And now, without any delay, it's my pleasure to hand you over. Dean, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Debbie. In today's session, we'll cover these agenda items as they pertain to the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Field Service application, with the intent of highlighting the core functional components and process flows. After the overview, we'll look at customer management, work order management, schedule and dispatch, mobility, customer billing, and analytics. The session will take approximately 2 hours, depending on the Q&A that we get from the audience. And at the end of the session, we'd like you to come away with an understanding of the core components of the Dynamics 365 Field Service application, and hope that you will have learned how the core components work together to provide an end-to-end field service functionality. To start with, we'll take a look at the field service overview. And for our session today, we're going to follow a medical device servicing organization through their digital transformation as they use Dynamics 365 Field Service to provide service to one of their new customers. Although field service system users come in many different types, for our discussion today, we will concentrate on these common field service related personas to help us understand the field service application from each perspective. We have listed some of the most common use case scenarios here on this slide as they perform in order to begin to define the roles and responsibilities, and we'll drill down into more detail as we progress through the session today. The field service application is available in Microsoft Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement Platform. It's an end-to-end solution providing functionality that enhances Dynamics 365 to enable management of your field service operations. On this slide, you see some of the key field service personas and functions of the end-to-end business processes for field service organizations. In the remainder of this session, we will break down each of these process groups, customer management through analytics, into additional detail, enabling you to see how the core field service functionality is typically used. Once the field service app is installed in your environment and your user is provisioned with the field service security role, you'll find the field service tile available in your menu bar here. In this slide, you can see the menu tiles for much of the core functional components of the field service application. And we'll discuss many of those in more detail as we proceed. So let's begin by navigating to an account record. And as we start the discussion around customer management. So in today's scenario, as a user for our medical device servicing company, we have just obtained a new customer, Contoso Hospital. Our sales team has just closed a deal with Contoso Hospital to provide routine maintenance services on the MRI machine located at the hospital. In preparation for providing these services, we begin by setting up Contoso Hospital as a service account in the system. With the Field Service app installed, you will find a new tab called Field Service in the account form. The fields in this tab enable downstream work order processing capabilities and should be filled in for all of your field service accounts. In the accounting-related section of the tab, you'll find the billing account and tax exemption fields. Selecting a billing account here will tell the system to use the mailing address from that billing account record as the address for any invoices that result from work performed at the service account. When the billing account field is left blank, invoices will be generated with the mailing address directly on this service account record. So as you can see here, the invoices for Contoso Hospital will be sent to their parent company, Contoso Healthcare Administration. In this section, we can also indicate whether service work performed for this account will be taxable or not using the tax-exempt field. Moving to the service section, we can select the service territory that this account falls in. All work orders generated for this service account will inherit this service territory from here, helping us to choose resources from the same territory when scheduling the work orders. Also in this section, we can define the type of travel charges, if any, that will be added to work orders for this account, and any specific account-related instructions we want to appear on all of the work orders. For example, where to park or how to check in before beginning the work. There are a couple of other important field service account items that aren't shown on our slide. The first is the geocode of the location for this service account. The geocode consists of the latitude and longitude GPS values that allow the app to know exactly where the work will be performed. The geocode stored on this service account will be inherited by all of its work orders, allowing us to efficiently route the resources to the location during the scheduling and dispatch processes. The system can automatically add the geocode to the service account using the address that you enter here. And to see the geocode values or to update the position after the address has already been entered, you'd use the geocode menu item, which is here in the ellipsis menu, and that opens the geocode dialog box for this account. Lastly, we want to ensure that each service account has both a currency and a price list assigned. These values will be required in the work order products and services that we sell during the work order process. And by specifying the values here, it will save the field agents a lot of time by not having to enter the information manually for each product or service that they add to a work order. Now that we have the service account record set up for Contoso Hospital, let's go ahead and create a customer asset record to represent that MRI machine that we'll be servicing. Right from within the Contoso Hospital account form, we can find the related records page for customer assets. From there, we click Add New Customer Asset, and we're taken to this screen for the new customer asset record. Customer asset records represent specific serviceable items that are associated to a particular customer's service account. So we'll go ahead and create an asset record named X12 MRI machine. With this asset in place, all of the service work that we do on the MRI machine will be related to it, and we'll be able to see the chronological records or service history right from this page. Also notice that assets can be grouped into hierarchies so that we can see the sub-assets or components of the MRI machine. In this case, a speed handle and a patient monitor are the subcomponents. With the optional Connected Field Service app, you can link the customer assets in Dynamics to the Microsoft Azure IoT suite, enabling the ability to receive real-time telemetry data from sensors connected to the assets directly into Dynamics. Therefore, when exceptions or anomalies are detected, the system could automatically generate work orders and even dispatch field agents to resolve those issues. Now let's set up a service agreement for Contoso Hospital so that the system will automatically generate the work orders according to the terms of our agreement with them. Again, we can navigate to Contoso's agreement records right from the account form by clicking the down arrow next to the account name to expose the related records and choosing agreements from the list. The agreement record specifies the service account, in this case Contoso Hospital, and the term or duration of time that it spans. Since we sold Contoso Hospital a one-year maintenance agreement, we'll set the term for 1 year. Notice that the billing account is automatically populated since we set it up on the account record, and therefore all service invoices will be addressed to Contoso Healthcare Administration for the work that we do on this MRI machine. Agreements come with a copy function up here, and that allows you to easily renew an agreement for subsequent years if you like. This feature can also be used to quickly create agreements for other service locations for the same or different billing accounts as well. Once we have set up the agreement header, we have to add booking setups to tell the system what types of work orders it should generate and how often it should generate them. We can create as many booking setups as we need under the same agreement record if we would need to perform different types of work on different frequencies for the same agreement. In our scenario, Contoso Hospital just wants to perform an MRI inspection on a monthly basis for a one-year term. So let's take a look at how we would set that up. This is the booking setup for Contoso's agreement that I mentioned. In the work order settings section, we tell the system whether or not to automatically generate the work orders for us, the type of work order we want it to generate, how many days in advance of the desired service date, what priority the work order should have, and any text that we want displayed in the work order summary field on the resulting work orders. In the booking settings section, we tell the system whether or not we want it to also schedule the work for us, what the expected duration of each service will be, and whether or not we have any flexibility from the specified service date each month. So in this example, we specify the service date as the 15th of each month, and the customer has indicated that it would be okay if we performed the service up to 10 days before or after the 15th. In the preferences section here, we can specify the particular resource or the person that we would prefer the work be scheduled to, as well as the preferred times of day that the customer would like us to be there. Once we have filled in the information and saved the booking setup record, we can then add one or more agreement incidents to it. The incidents will tell the system what parts and labor we normally expect to use on these services, the procedural service tasks that we want our field agent to perform, and the skills or characteristics that the field agent should possess in order to be qualified to do the job. We'll talk a little more about incidents further on in this session. Once we have all of the information specified on the agreement booking setup, we use the booking recurrence button located here to specify the recurrence pattern to create the bookings. Much like setting the recurrence in an Outlook appointment, right? This tells the system how often to generate the work orders for this agreement booking setup. So in our example, Contosa wants a monthly MRI maintenance inspection, so we would set that recurrence to monthly. So that concludes the discussion of the core components of the customer management topic. Let's go ahead and move on to the work order management processes. So as we begin to look at work order management processes, it often helps to define the work order life cycle in these simple terms. Basically, we receive a service request, we schedule the work order, perhaps we notify the customer, we travel to the service location, we complete the work, perhaps then we collect a payment if that's relevant, and then we close out the work order. As you might think about deploying the field service app in your organization, you want to begin by defining that core process flow that's right for the field, for the type of field service that you provide to your customers. So once we've defined that high-level process flow, sometimes it helps then to dive a little bit deeper and add a little bit more detail to it. And here's an example of how you might go about doing that, right? We can in this format, we can identify the typical sources of the incoming service requests. For example, the service request might come from the agreements that we just set up. You might convert a case into a work order. You might even convert an opportunity record into a work order, or you might just click on the new button as on the list of work orders and manually create a new work order. But it helps to identify the work order generation and creation process as a first step. You know, thinking about things as what happens during that step in the process, which of your personas or people typically perform those steps, what that means from a work order status perspective as the work order moves through its life cycle, and then what that might mean to the booking or appointment statuses in relation to the work order as it moves through. And you would go about doing that for each of these steps of schedule, dispatch, service completion. Perhaps you have a review and approval step in your workflow that you would want to account for. And then the subsequent closing and invoicing and perhaps inventory adjustment processes that need to be accounted for. All right, let's move to the next slide. As you see here, work order records really are the heartbeat of the field service application. And the information contained in the work orders is critical to operating a successful field service operation. So we're going to dedicate the next few slides to reviewing the work order information and discussing some of the importance of the data that's contained within the work order. The first thing you'll notice about the work order form is that it comes with an embedded process bar at the top. Right? The default process is used to define the stage that the work order record is in at any given time. And you can modify this process bar to meet your organization's unique process steps if needed. So in the Summary tab, we see the General section. This section contains the auto-generated work order number, the required service account that we had set up in our previous example, the billing account where the invoices would be sent to, the system status and corresponding substatus, and a brief description of the work to be performed in the work order summary field. Now that system status field is the key field in this section. Work order system status values are preset in the system and cannot be changed. The values are unscheduled, scheduled, in progress, completed, posted, and canceled. For the most part, these status values will be automatically updated by the system as you complete other actions. So when you create a booking record, the status moves to scheduled. When the field agent indicates that they are on site, the value changes to in progress automatically. When the field agent indicates he has completed the booking, the work order status moves to close. Even though you cannot change the system status values that I mentioned before, you can, however, create your own corresponding sub-status values. Using this technique allows you to use your company's unique process steps to indicate where the work order is in its life cycle. As you can see from the example here, we've created a sub-status named Ready for Dispatch, which would be an indicator we use to let the dispatcher know that that work order then is ready to be scheduled. And that's just an example. Again, you can modify those sub-status values to meet your unique needs. Also notice the next section called Primary Incident. Remember we spoke about the use of incidents when we were setting up Contoso's agreement previously? And we'll drill into more detail on incidents in a moment. But for now, it's important to point out that incidents can be defined as the specific jobs that we are going to perform while completing the work order. Each incident is sort of a package of parts, labor, service tasks, and required skills needed to complete that particular job. Each work order can contain multiple incidents if necessary. Notice the incidents grid on the right here, side of the form. But we refer to the first incident that we enter as the primary incident, and that's what's displayed over here in this section. The work order incident records are where we calculate the expected work order duration. So each incident then has a separate duration, and if we were to add more than one incident to the work order, the total duration would be summarized at the work order level. Incidents are also where we associate the customer assets that we will be working on, so we can track the service history for each. As we saw when we set up Contoso's MRI machine asset record a bit ago. Notice that this work order contains the MRI inspection incident here because it was generated from the Contoso agreement that we created before, which specified the type of job or incident that we should be performing for them. Let's go ahead and continue scrolling down the work order form a little bit further. First here we find the total section, which shows us the estimated amount. This amount will be the sum of the estimated parts and labor that were added to the work order. As the field agent changes the status of those parts and labor items from estimated to used, the system will calculate the total billable amount of the work order, which can then subsequently be transferred to the invoice when the work order is posted. Notice the bookings grid on the right. Bookings are the appointment records we create when we schedule a work order to a particular resource or field agent. Many times we can complete the service work in one visit or one appointment, so we would only require one booking appointment in that scenario. But if we need to send the field agent on multiple visits or send more than one field agent in order to complete the work, then we would create multiple booking appointments to represent each of the separate service visits that are needed. The separation of records, work orders and their child bookings, gives us a great deal of flexibility in the scheduling and dispatching processes. The Settings tab has a number of sections in it. The General section contains the required work order type. You specify work order type values to meet your organization's needs. They're designed to help you categorize the distinct type of work that you perform for reporting purposes and perhaps to isolate different business processes that may be required for each type. Notice how the other fields in this section were inherited from Contoso Hospital's service account that we set up earlier. So when we associated Contoso Hospital to this work order, then these fields were populated automatically. The Preferences section is where you can specify the desired time to schedule this work order within. There are 3 separate methods for specifying the booking time preference. The time to and from promised fields are meant to define a duration of time that work should begin within. So these fields work well for specifying the preferred start time range when that range is within a single day, right? Between 3 and 4 o'clock tomorrow, for example. The date and time window fields then work together to allow you to specify a date range and the corresponding time window in the date range. So in our example here, for Contoso Hospital, you can see that the agreement booking setup specified the preference as any day between the 7th and the 25th of the month, and then between 7 and 3 p.m. on those days, on any of those days. The last method that we use here is called time groups. And that method allows you to create blocks of time, for example, morning or afternoon, and then specify the group as the preferred preference for the customer. Let's continue scrolling down further on the work order form to look at some more of the data fields. These tabs contain work order service tasks, products, and services. Service tasks are commonly used to specify the procedural steps that you want the field agent to follow as they complete the job or incident. Each service task can include an estimated duration of how long it should take and the ability to mark it complete once it's done. Moving on to Work Order Products tab, you'll see that contains the list of parts or materials that are expected to be needed to complete the work. When we add the products to the work order ahead of time, because we know that this job normally requires them, it saves the field agent time by not having to manually add them in the field. Using the mobile application, you can see here that the parts are added with a line status of estimated. If the field agent does not need to use the parts, then they can be left there with the estimated status, and they will not be calculated into the billed amount. If the field agent needs to use the part, they simply change the line status to used and ensure that the correct quantity, pricing, and warehouse values are set. Work order services then are used to specify the labor charges for this work order. A similar concept to the products, except that services are not inventoried as parts and materials might be, and they use a duration of time as the quantity instead of a whole number as the products do. Moving to the next slide brings us to the bottom of the work order form. This section contains the address, geocode, and a map of the service location. Remember that the geocode is important to field service operations because it allows the system to calculate the travel time in order to optimize resource usage while minimizing travel expenses and non-productive time. This geocode information was inherited from Contoso Hospital's account that we set up earlier. But if you need to adjust Contoso's default service location for this individual work order, all you have to do is enter a new address here, use the geocode button in the menu ribbon, and the ribbon menu, or simply drag the map pin to the approximate location if it's nearby. Now that we have covered all of the important information contained in a work order record, let's see how the system uses that information to prepare for optimal scheduling purposes. So in our scenario, we are in the process of scheduling the MRI inspection work order for Contoso Hospital. But it's important to note that the field service app allows you to schedule just about any type of record if you needed to. So for example, you can schedule bookings for workers related to a project from the project service app, or you might schedule salespeople to meet with customers as they close a sales opportunity. We call this feature universal resource scheduling because it allows the dispatcher to have a unified experience no matter what type of record they may be scheduling against. The field service app accomplishes this with a unified scheduling experience with a record called the resource requirement. That's what we're showing here on the screen. For work orders, you can see that the system automatically creates the resource requirement record for us. Right? So we didn't have to do anything special to create this resource requirement. And then as we filled in the information on the work order, the system automatically copies a lot of those field values into the resource requirement record for us. Right? You can actually see that in action by navigating from the work order to the related records page called Requirements. Right? And that takes us to this page. And as you can see on this slide then, all of the work order information that was pertinent to the scheduling process has automatically been copied to the resource requirement record for us. So as we move to the scheduling process, this will allow the dispatcher or the optional resource schedule optimization engine to make the best decisions when deciding when to schedule the job and who to schedule it to. So next we're going to navigate to the work order incident record that we mentioned before. Right earlier, when we discussed incidents for agreements and work orders, we said we'd talk about it a little bit further down the line. So let's take a moment now to drill into that topic a little bit further. So incidents, again, are meant to define the standard types of jobs or services that we perform in the field service operation. In Contoso's case, they perform a lot of these MRI inspections. So their system administrators have pre-created an incident type as a template to store all of the information related to that specific job. Since these job templates or incident types have already been set up ahead of time, then they can easily be added to a work order, saving the schedulers, the dispatchers, or the work order creators a lot of time from having to do all the manual populating of that data each time. Let's take a look at what the incident type record form looks like. So the incident types or job templates contain the estimated duration of that job, the procedural service tasks, the estimated products and services, and then the characteristics like skills or certifications that may be required by the field agent to perform the job. So as you begin to set up your field service application, you will want to take some time to create your own set of incident type records for all the most common jobs that you regularly perform in your operation. Next, I wanted to mention that the field service app comes with an inventory and purchasing functionality. Right? Capabilities include purchase order processing, inventory management, merchandise and vendor returns, to name a few. The functionality can be used as a standalone module, or you can integrate it to your accounting or ERP or other systems that you might already be using to manage inventory within your organization. Right? Because we know that having accurate inventory information within the field service app allows your field agents to perform their work without having to use multiple systems, and increases the efficiency and accuracy of your service billings. If your organization uses inventory in the service that you perform, you will definitely want to explore the inventory and purchasing capabilities to optimize your field service operations, as well as potentially an integration of the field service inventory capabilities into whatever other inventory management systems you use. For the sake of this webinar, we're not going to drill down into those particular inventory management functionalities. We'll save that for subsequent session. And for those that would be interested in that information. So before we move on to the schedule and dispatch process topics, I wanted to briefly mention how Dynamics portals can be used in conjunction with the field service application. The Dynamics customer portal can provide customers with a 360-degree view of their work orders, agreements, assets, and invoices. We find that customers feel more empowered about their service experience with an organization because all the information about previous and upcoming appointments is stored in a customer portal, and they can quickly reference it when questions arise, as well as perhaps schedule their own appointments or appointment requests. In addition, we have a Dynamics partner portal, which is commonly used to enable scenarios such as where subcontractors that aren't employees of your organization and don't therefore have access to your Dynamics 365 app to view the work that you may have assigned to them, and then to even log into the portal and update that work status and or completion information as you need them to. Dynamics portals are licensed separately from the field service application, so they're optional, but they can provide a lot of added value to your customers and partners. And that's why I wanted to take a moment to point them out here. All right, so that concludes the work order management section of this session. Let's go ahead and move then into the schedule and dispatch portion. The field service app allows for three basic or different scheduling processes that we define as manual, semi-automated, and with the optional RSO app, fully automated. So let's start by exploring the semi-automated method first. The semi-automated scheduling method uses a feature called the scheduling assistant. It's used to schedule one work order at a time, and it assists the dispatcher in making the best decision when choosing the date, time, and resource to perform the work. The scheduling assistant can be accessed directly from the work order form using the book button in the ribbon menu, as shown in the screenshot, or it can be invoked from the schedule board window directly from a resource requirement, which we'll look at next. When the book button is pressed, then a separate browser tab is opened, like this, showing the Schedule Assistant window. The Schedule Assistant includes a filter pane here on the left that is pre-populated with some information from the work order and can be modified as necessary to enable you to search for the most appropriate resources and time slots to book this work order to. Schedule Assistant filters include available duration, resource proximity to the service location, preferred start times, preferred resources, customer territories, and skills or characteristics. Once we have the filters set as we want them, we simply press the search button on the bottom of the filter pane, and the scheduling assistant will then perform the search for us. Then the scheduling assistant turns a set of results, which are made up of a list of resources with different time slots, right? So these are the people or the field agents that are available to perform this work according to the filters that we specified in the pane. The dispatcher then would review the information returned, a lot of times concentrating on things like estimated travel time or date and time in order to come to make the best decision on which one of the rows in the results to pick. Once they make that choice, they highlight the row and click the book and exit button here. Or if they need to schedule more than one of these resources to do the work, they would click book and next in order to be returned to the results and select subsequent resources and time slots. So this scheduling assistant scheduling method is used for organizations that have a somewhat larger volume of work orders and resources and are concerned about maximizing work hours, and reducing travel time. Next then, let's take a look at the manual scheduling method that we mentioned. So what I have here is a view of the field service schedule board. So this manual method uses the schedule board feature of the field service app, right? The schedule board allows the dispatcher to manually schedule the work order by simply dragging a resource requirement from the pane on the bottom right up into the time slot grid in the middle of the schedule board like that, right? Thereby choosing the resource and the time to schedule the work order into. Right, so they're making a manual decision here about what time to schedule it for, what day and time, and what particular field agent or resources it's going to be assigned to. So in our Contoso Hospital example here, the dispatcher is taking this month's MRI inspection work order from the bottom pane and scheduling it to the resource Edgar Dominiquez, right, for 11:30 on the 8th. Manual scheduling can be effected when there are lower volume of work orders and resources with no constraints such as resource skills, specific time windows, or traveling efficiencies. Or perhaps sometimes when you have an exception or a late-minute request where a dispatcher wants to handle it manually because they know when and who they want it to be scheduled to, so they don't have to rely on the semi-automated or fully automated processes to do it for them. Now let's talk about the fully automated option that we have. So for organizations that have large volumes of work orders and resources, along with many scheduling constraints, Microsoft offers this Resource Scheduling Optimization, or RSO for short, app. This allows for fully automated scheduling. So once installed, RSO can be configured to continually optimize your company's service schedule in the background, right? Including the stream of new service requests or work orders coming in, along with the existing bookings that it might have created previously, right? According to your specific goals, such as minimizing travel time, or maximizing the completed work, meeting SLAs, minimizing overtime, assigning the most capable resources for a job, and prioritizing customers appropriately, right? So the automated method of scheduling then can take a lot of those variables into consideration, using its algorithms then to recommend the right sequence of routing for each of the work orders and resource requirements that we're trying to get scheduled. All right, let's move now on to the actually, I'm sorry, let me back up one more slide. There we go. Let me take a moment to talk about the schedule board itself in a little bit more detail. So this schedule board is a highly configurable component and can accommodate many different types of scheduling scenarios that you might have in your business. For example, the schedule board can be configured to display a map of the resources' current locations and the routes that they will be taking during the day to help the dispatcher decide which resource may be best to handle an emergency job, and where in that resource's schedule they should place the appointment to optimize their route while still accommodating that emergency for the customer. In addition to enabling the manual scheduling that we talked about a moment ago, the schedule board is also used to visually display the progress of jobs being worked on. So as the field agents conduct their work and update the status of their bookings, the color of the booking in the schedule board will update automatically, right? So you can see in this example that the morning's bookings are green because the field agents are actually on site performing the work, except for one, which still has a status of traveling, red, even though it's past the current time has passed the estimated start. So this would allow the dispatcher looking at the schedule board to proactively contact the field agent or customer in order to assess the situation, understand what's going on, and make the appropriate decisions, right, before the schedule gets too far out of control for the day. So proactive reach out because of the fact that they have this visualization of what's going on in the field on a moment-by-moment basis. So not only is the schedule board highly configurable, but you can see various configurations in individual tabs on the board, right? So in this screenshot, notice that the tabs in the top right corner here, you can see on our schedule board in this example, we currently have two tabs. One is labeled Initial Public View. The second is just labeled Schedule Board Number 2. You can pick and choose the names that you want to, of the tabs that you want to add. But the point is that by creating multiple schedule board tab configurations, either at the user or dispatch level, or at the dispatch team or broader company level, you can quickly change the layout of everything that you see in the screenshot to suit particular scheduling scenarios. Common example is a group of dispatchers that specialize in dispatching particular types of work or particular work in certain territories. So you might, in that example, have a particular dispatcher who's only responsible for managing the schedule of one territory, they would configure views on their tabs then to filter out all of the information from the other territories so they could easily focus in on what they were responsible for. All right, now let's move to the mobility processes section of today's webinar. The Dynamics Field Service application comes with a companion mobile app that is available to download from the Android, Apple, or Microsoft app stores. Although some field agents could use a laptop in the field and access the field service through a regular browser, like internal employees might normally do, it's often more convenient for them to use the field service mobile app. The mobile app is enabled for touch-sensitive devices, such as tablets and phones, and can be used in an offline mode when a cellular or internet connection isn't available. When a connection becomes available, the app seamlessly syncs the data between the server and the mobile device so all field service employees can stay up to date. The mobile app is easily configured as well by your system administrators, right, to accommodate your unique field service needs. But here we're just going to look and review the standard configuration as it comes out of the box. When the field agent opens the mobile app, the home page displays a list of menu choices along the left-hand side. The default dashboard then displays the agent's assigned bookings, along with a pie chart broken down by work order type. Account and contact information is also available for the field agent and can be filtered based on your specific requirements. Remember, all of this configuration is how it comes out of the box, but it's easy to reconfigure for each individual installation that you have. Moving on, we see a list of the bookings displayed for the resource, right? Field agents normally spend a lot of time on the mobile app in the bookings menu. Here's where they will find a list of their assigned bookings, which can be displayed in a simple daily list or in a day, week, or monthly calendar format. Bookings can also be viewed on a map from the home page in order to see where the service locations are. So sometimes when a field agent is trying to visualize what their day looks like and where in their region they're going to be going, they can quickly pull up a map from the mobile application and see the pins that show them where the service locations are going to be. So when we drill into a booking record, we can see information from both the booking and the work order records displayed. All of the work order information that we reviewed earlier can be made available to the field agent in the mobile app if desired, but often we limit some of the information so the forms are not too cluttered, because the format or the screen size might be smaller on a mobile device. But we still attempt to provide all of the relevant information that they need to complete their work. As products and service labor are consumed, the field agent changes the status of those product and labor records from estimated to used, and updates the quantity if necessary. Then customer asset information is available from within the work order. So in our example, for Contoso Hospital, The field agent has access to all of the relevant information and service history for the MRI machine that is being serviced right from within the mobile device. Activity records can be created right within the mobile app as well to ensure seamless collaboration with both team members and/or customers. The field agent can easily capture notes on the work order, including photos and videos, if necessary. Customer signatures can be captured and payments recorded as the work order is completed as well. So that's a brief overview of the mobile application. There's obviously a lot more detail to be studied, and the takeaway there, as I mentioned earlier, is just that there's a significant amount of capability to modify the out-of-the-box mobile application for your particular needs. Now let's go ahead and move on to the customer billing segment of today's session. So it isn't mandatory, but it is common for many field service organizations to do an administrative review of the work order before it's finalized and posted. The process might include things like checking to make sure the proper parts and labor have been included, descriptions, findings, any notes are properly written, the totals for the parts and labor are accurate, things like that. But once this review process is complete, then the system status is simply changed here to close posted, which signifies that we're done with the review process and we're going to then close out this particular work order. And so what happens after that, and in our example, when the MRI inspection work order for Contoso Hospital is posted, the system generated this particular invoice, right? It includes labor for the MRI inspection service, a gradient coil, and a lithium battery for a total of $1,384. And as you can tell from following through our example today, these were the items that were set up originally in our MRI inspection incident type, then specified in the agreement, which automatically included them in the work order for the field agent to consume in the mobile application, ultimately winding up here on the invoice. It's possible to create an invoice report in the field service application by building a custom report, but many field service organizations transfer the information from the field service app into their accounting system in order to track the other financial aspects, accounts payables and receivables and things like that result from the work, from the service work. Right. This could be accomplished by setting up system integrations, as we mentioned earlier, or through manual import or export-import processes. Now let's look at the revenue and cost information that the system produced for us as a result of processing this work order and then posting it. As field agents perform their work and update the status of the work order, the system then tracks the amount of time that they spend traveling, working, and on breaks. These times are then used in conjunction with the agent's pay rate to calculate the cost of their time against this work order. That information is then displayed here in what's called the actuals list when the work order is posted. Then the invoice is when the invoice that we saw before is marked as confirmed or billed, the system will add the billed amounts from those parts and labor items that we saw a minute ago to this list of actuals, associated to the work order. So the end result then is that we end up with a consolidated list of revenue and costs from each completed work order that can be used for things like profit analysis, reporting, or perhaps accounting integrations. That concludes the topic of customer billing. Let's go ahead now and take a look at analytics and discuss some of the most common metrics used to analyze field service operations. The number of field service related metrics and KPIs really can be as varied as the organizations themselves. But from experience, we have found some commonality among different organizations in focusing on these types of KPIs that the system can offer, to improve performance and increase efficiency. So if you're already familiar with Dynamics 365 at all, you know that there are many different ways and capabilities for you to generate things like views, charts, dashboards, and even physical reports that can be printed out in order to monitor the information that you're most interested in. So you're not stuck with the out-of-the-box analytics that may or may not suit your needs. The point is that you can easily build the specific metrics and the visibility of those metrics that you need for your business. So what we're going to show here in these coming slides are samples of charts and reports and metrics that we have seen commonly used. But it's important to note that they're not included as a default part of the field service application, again, because we find that there's so much variety in what customers want to see, and the configuration of these things are so easy in the Dynamics platform that it makes sense for you to create those on your field service implementation project. So in the following slides then we'll take a look at some sample dashboards that we mocked up from typical field service data, like we have seen in our session today. The first dashboard is called the Field Service Productivity Chart. Right? It includes things like on-time resources. Right? This can show the difference between estimated arrival time and actual arrival time. Average difference in duration, which can display the difference between the estimated duration and the total billable duration. And then average time to schedule by scheduler, which displays the difference between the time the work order was created to when the booking was created, looking for gaps or lapse in the process of getting work orders scheduled as quickly as possible. Now let's take a look at some examples of profit and loss charts in a dashboard. This could include things like on-time resources, which would display the difference between the estimated arrival time and actual arrival time. Again, the average difference in duration, and then average time to schedule. So just a different way of looking at some of the same charts that we mentioned a moment ago, but from a profit and loss perspective. Here's some examples of things that you could consider for field service revenue forecast, right? So work order profit and revenue forecast by scheduled and unscheduled work orders, or maybe estimated product and labor costs by scheduled and unscheduled work orders. So again, these are just some examples, and all created relatively easily. Again, what's important to know is that you have the ability to concentrate on the metrics that are important to your business and easily develop these types of charts and dashboards and reports to accommodate your needs. There's some other examples here with about the volume of field service data, right? Focusing in on things like the count of scheduled and completed work orders over time, or by type and by resource. That includes the topics that we had scheduled for today. Did want to leave just a moment in case there were any open Q&A items that anybody wanted to discuss. And if not, we'll go ahead.
Yeah, while we're waiting for those questions to come in, I'll go ahead and introduce the survey, and then when I'm done, I'll just ask you for final words. Is that okay?
Thank you, Debbie.
Yep, so folks, I did just post a survey link in the messages window. We appreciate you taking a moment to fill it out prior to logging out. Click the link, enter your email, you'll be taken into the survey. There's 5 questions, and our voting scale is on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best score possible. Be sure to click on the submit button at the bottom to ensure that your feedback has been received. And with that, Dean, back to you for final words.
Thanks, Debbie, and thanks to everyone for taking the time to listen to our Fast Track Tech Talk on the field service application today. And take care and have a good day.
All right, thanks so much, Dean. So ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude today's web conference. The web conference recording will be available at the same registration site within 24 hours. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenter, Dean, and thank you, audience, for logging in and joining us today.